Hey guys, our topic this week is a lore request from Mariana Ernest, and also, quasi-coincidentally, is being released in honor of Netflix's Castlevania series, hashtag not sponsored, which, barring very recent changes between the time of recording this video and today, should have released Season 2, well, today! Assuming you're watching this video on its Friday release date. Our topic this week is on the story of Castlevania Lords of Shadow and its connected games universe.
First thing to note is that this game series is completely disconnected from most, if not all, of the Castlevania franchise, most notably including the aforementioned Netflix Castlevania series. So if there's any concerns about spoilers for any of the Castlevania games, or you're worried about watching this before a certain anime on Netflix ends for the same reason, relax. This video has literally nothing to do with that. Do make sure to go watch the show after this, though, because it's an amazing video game to TV show adaptation of Castlevania 3, Curse of Dracula. Definitely worth the watch, at least if Season 1 was any indication. We're fans.
So, chronologically, the first thing you need to know about the world of Lords of Shadow is that many centuries before the games begin, most of which take place sometime in the Middle Ages, three heroes founded an order known as the Brotherhood of Light. They were tasked with fighting the hordes of Satan and Hell in the name of God. For many decades, they fought and killed Satan's army until they finally tipped the balance in God's favor. One such battle came when the three were called to slay a creature known as the Forgotten One, a creature so old and powerful that his name has been lost to time. The Forgotten One had been summoned by the Bernhardt family in their castle, this will be important later, but had broken loose of their control. The three founders knew they would not be able to slay it, and so instead found an opportunity to lock the demon away in a giant, different dimensional rift ball that had a seal bound to their blood and thus their collective life forces. Think of it as a giant, blood-based Pokeball for demons. After locking the Forgotten One away, the three continued their battle against Satan, and after an unknown number of years fighting for and studying the ways of God, the three discovered three sacred places. Places where heaven and earth were so closely connected that one could pass through, presumably in either direction. One for each of them. How very convenient. The three then shed their bodies and sins, purifying themselves and leaving their corpses behind to become celestial beings, so powerful that their power was second only to gods. That's right, they ascended to become demigods. Because why the heck not?
Many centuries later, we encounter Gabriel Belmont, our protagonist for most of this game series. Gabriel was an orphan left on the footsteps of the Brotherhood's chapel, as the organization had survived long past the death of its leaders, and continued to put the hurt on the forces of hell. Taken in and named for an archangel, Gabriel was raised and trained in the ways of the Brotherhood and excelled specifically in the art of combat. But he also suffered from mood swings, dark moods, etc. Basically, he was totally edge, bro. And the only thing that could ever seem to truly calm him and bring him peace was Marie, the daughter of a local wealthy merchant who had always been fascinated with the Brotherhood and their stories. The two met as children, and as they grew, made many promises of the life they would live together, all of which they kept, eventually wed with the blessing of both the Brotherhood and Marie's family. Gabriel took the surname Belmont. Remember, he was an orphan, so he had no last name, for his love of the mountains and high places. As the closest translation we could find was beautiful mountain, it makes sense. Fast forward an indeterminate time to 1 year before the games begin. While on a Brotherhood mission to hunt down a creature known simply as the Demon Lord, Gabriel's wife Marie gave birth to their son, Trevor. However, an old god named Pan, old god here simply being a term for powerful beings that were worshipped as deities prior to the rise of Christianity, though interestingly, Pan at least seems to be a good guy and totally gets it. And the elders of the Brotherhood showed her, with the help of an amulet made from the Mirror of Fate, a reoccurring item in the series, that Gabriel would fall into darkness, and she and her child would die because of it. Resultantly, they convinced her to let the Brotherhood raise Trevor in secret in order to protect him and prepare him to handle the future darkness, seemingly fated for Gabriel. She accepted, and after Pan gave the amulet of the Mirror of Fate to the child, he was taken and raised away from Gabriel's knowledge. Afterward, Gabriel returned after locking the Demon Lord away in his own, much smaller blood-based Pokeball, and wouldn't discover he had a son until it was too late. Because apparently it took 9 months or more to track down and deal with the Demon Lord, since no questions were asked about a previously pregnant wife.
By the time a year had passed, the world seemed to have entered a time of darkness, so much so that some believed heaven and God had abandoned the earth entirely. Additionally, it seemed that the spirits of the dead were trapped here on Earth after their demise, unable to pass on. Specifically, Marie, who had died a few days before the first game begins, seemingly slain by creatures of darkness, lingered hauntingly on our plane. The elders of the Order believed that there was a powerful spell being cast by a great evil, and that this was the cause of all the problems. Further, they had a vision telling them that Marie had a message for Gabriel related to this whole mess, and so sent him to the Lake of Oblivion, a place where the living could speak to the dead, presumably even in normal times. When Gabriel arrives, the player discovers that Pan, the old god who had helped convince Marie to hide Trevor away, was the guardian of the lake. And after putting him through a trial, a puzzle for the player but a nightmare of him stabbing his own wife with a dagger while wearing a strange mask for Gabriel, Pan told Gabriel that he was worthy to go to the lake and speak with whoever he'd come to see. Before reaching his destination, Gabriel encountered one of several stone guardians, which he was aided in defeating by Zobek, another member of the Brotherhood who just happened to be nearby. Finally able to speak to his dead wife, Marie told Gabriel that the Lords of Shadow were the key to fixing everything, and that it was prophesied that a pure-hearted warrior will claim the power of the Shadow Lords as his own and overcome all evil. Afterward, Gabriel and Zobek confer, and Zobek convinces Gabriel that with the power of the Shadow Lords, he'd be able to resurrect Marie. Motivated by this, the two parted ways, with Gabriel heading off to the land of the Lycans, and Zobek heading for the land of vampires to prep for Gabriel's later arrival.
In the land of the Lycans, Gabriel found a seemingly young woman by the name of Claudia, who appeared to be mute but led him on a path, eventually speaking to Gabriel through telepathy, which is when she also revealed that she could read minds. After introducing her Dark Knight protector, she begins to read Gabriel's mind before quickly pulling away, screaming in terror. Once she calmed down, she tells Gabriel she knew why he was there. Duh, she just read his mind. And offered to help him. They traveled together before resting for the night, but Gabriel slept poorly, waking in the morning from a nightmare of him wearing the same mask from his vision at the lake, but this time putting the knife to the recently met Claudia instead of his wife, who told him she'd known this would be her fate from the moment she read his mind. Raising from his slumber, he was met by Pan and told that he needed to take the Dark Gauntlet from the Dark Knight. But, as the gauntlet was A, not his, and B, physically attached to the Dark Knight, Gabriel initially refused, having no desire to harm his allies. It was then that Pan pointed out the corpse of a recently slain Claudia, who laid there with Gabriel's dagger impaling her through the heart, indicating it was obviously too late for such claims. It was only in this moment that Gabriel and the Dark Knight noticed Claudia's demise, and the Dark Knight, magically bound to be Claudia's guardian, flew into a rage, attempting to slay Gabriel. Gabriel eventually triumphed, forced to slay the Dark Knight to save his own life, and then, of its own accord, the Dark Gauntlet Pan had wanted him to acquire fused itself to his arm, rather painfully based on his reaction. The player is then given the description of the Dark Gauntlet, which ends with a rather ominous statement. Claudia's father included the Dark Gauntlet because of the sheer power and brute force that it gave the golem, but in truth, it has a much darker purpose, though it does not elaborate on what this purpose might be.
Moving on, Gabriel eventually came face-to-face with the Dark Lord of the Lycans, Cornell. While there, Cornell revealed that when the three founders of the Order had ascended to heaven, the dead bodies they left behind were anything but. And it seemed that in stripping their souls of any sins or evil they may have carried, all of that metaphysical baggage had been left with their still living, now quasi-soulless bodies, and they became the first of their individual races. Werewolves, vampires, and necromancers respectively. Necromancers are less a race and more of a profession, but it still all stemmed from that guy. Cornell, who was the youngest of the three founders, but also the physical brute, i.e. the group's tank, had become the very first Lycan, a werewolf. We learn later that his brother, the mage of the party, became the closest thing this game has to death from all the other Castlevanias, as he was the first necromancer and all other necromancers thereafter had to take their power directly from him, and that their sister, the healer, had become the very first vampire. Cornell went on to explain that while they were separated physically, the two halves of the founders of the Brotherhood of Light were still spiritually connected, and as such, if one died, so did the other, thinking that Gabriel, as a member of the Brotherhood, would be loath to slay him given that knowledge. But really, Gabriel was mostly here to save his beloved, so he couldn't care less what would happen to the ascended souls of the original three. If they had to die because their bodies were running amok and it would give him Marie back, it was a done deal. No hesitation, no questions asked.
After quickly slaying the Lord of the Lycans and offering a prayer at the direct conduit between heaven and earth, Gabriel received 1/3 of the God Mask, a mask that will supposedly give the power of God, which player and character alike assume at this point is the power alluded to in the prophecy. Pan appeared in the form of an eagle to take Gabriel to the land of the vampires, where he met up with Zobek in the one human refuge left standing in the region. While here, Gabriel's preferred weapon, the Combat Cross, was given an improvement that allowed the bottom point the ability to extend and turn into a stake. Because, vampires everywhere. After that, Zobek and Gabriel began by entering the home of the abbot Vincent Dorian, who held a power that would save his town but refused to do anything with it but protect himself. Turns out that power was holy water. After taking the holy water flasks, Gabriel, without remorse, leaves the abbot to die as he is drained by vampires in his own home.
Gabriel then enters the castle of the second Lord of Shadow, Carmilla, Lord of Vampires, which used to be the home of the Bernhardt family. While traversing the castle, Gabriel encountered Laura, Carmella's daughter, and one of the most powerful vampires in this game series. He and Laura then play a game of vampire chess, which she promptly loses, and later goes all Palpatine on Gabriel until Marie, as a ghost, rescues him. Pubescent vampire shenanigans survived, Gabriel finally comes face to face with Carmilla, who tried to convince Gabriel to allow her to turn him into a vampire, alluding that he would eventually wind up as one anyway. Gabriel obviously refused, and ended their violent fight by breaking off the stake from his combat cross, now aptly called by the people the Vampire Killer, in Carmella's chest once he staked her. He then grabbed the second piece of the mask before following Pan through the Mirror of Fate, heading into the land of the Necromancers.
While there, Pan appeared once more, this time telling Gabriel he would need to know how to wield both light and darkness together in order to prevail in his upcoming battle, and that only one of them would leave this spot alive. Issuing a sort of teaching challenge and proclaiming that mortal combat between the two was the only way to proceed. So saying, Pan armored up and turned into this boss super angel looking thing known as the Silver Warrior. Reluctantly, and burdened by the knowledge of killing yet another friend and ally, Gabriel overcame and slew Pan. Afterward, the path opened thanks to Pan's blood being spilled. Gabriel proceeded forward, muttering simply, "I am not worthy, I am not of pure heart." The beginning of his admittance of what he was becoming.
Eventually, Gabriel arrives at the once holy connection between heaven and earth, where he expected to encounter the Lord of the Necromancers. Finding no one, he simply took the third piece of the God Mask and placed them together, creating the fully formed God Mask. At this point, Zobek shows up, congratulating Gabriel and donning an all-too familiar mask, the same one Gabriel had been wearing in each of his murderous visions, first of his wife, then of Claudia. Zobek then revealed that he was, in fact, the Lord of Necromancers. Gabriel's trusted guide throughout the game turned out to be the third and final Lord of Shadows. Gabriel then asserts that he would stop Zobek, which is when the much darker purpose of the Dark Gauntlet is revealed, as apparently Zobek's knowledge of the dark arts, combined with the Dark Gauntlet's nature and construction, meant that Zobek could seize control of the gauntlet. The Necromancer Lord then went on to reveal that all the while, it had been Zobek who had placed the Devil Mask on Gabriel and made him kill his beloved Marie, had made him kill Claudia, and had been swaying him in this direction ever since he began his quest. Zobek let this information sink in for a moment, and then slew Gabriel, claiming his victory by taking the God Mask. Which is when it is revealed to Zobek that all of his machinations to acquire the mask had been planned by the devil himself, who had even gone so far as to whisper the secrets of the dark arts to him and plant the idea to use Gabriel in Zobek's mind, all in order for the devil himself to finally acquire the God Mask and use it to wage war on his father, God. At which point Satan disintegrated Zobek and took the mask. Meanwhile, Gabriel was in that in-between space with all the other trapped souls of the dead, where they were trying to coax him out of his body and into the afterlife. Marie came to his rescue once again, shooing away the souls, knowing Gabriel was their only hope. Afterward, Marie and the other ghosts, somehow, worked together to resurrect Gabriel. Gabriel was brought back to life and fought with everything he had against Satan, eventually getting him in a chokehold, and while Satan was adamant that God wouldn't forgive Gabriel just as he wouldn't forgive the devil, Gabriel repented in that moment and was filled with the Spirit of God. Satan, unable to handle direct contact with the Holy Spirit of the Lord, was shunted back to hell.
After a touching moment with Marie, where she showed Gabriel the power of the God Mask to see through God's eyes, basically it lets the wearer see the dead as the living and more easily interact with them, which left Gabriel feeling as if the mask had been nothing but a false hope all along. She left him to ascend to heaven. Claudia is also seen waving goodbye before going into the afterlife with the rest of the spirits, thus ending the base portion of the first game. But the DLC begins almost immediately after all those spirits departed, with Gabriel receiving a mental communication from the young vampire Laura, who said she needed his help at the castle. Turns out, by killing all the Lords of Shadows, complete with their holy halves, the seal around the Forgotten One, see, we didn't mention him for no reason earlier, was breaking down. The Forgotten One was forcing his way out of the giant blood-based Pokeball and trying to come out to the real world. Eventually, Gabriel and Laura made their way to the top of the tower, where Gabriel would enter the trap and slay the Forgotten One. But there was one small hitch. Only creatures of darkness can enter the blood-based Pokeballs. So he had to become a creature of darkness. Laura provided a solution, telling him to drink her blood and become a vampire. With few options, Gabriel complied, and while he only wished to take just enough to be changed into a vampire, after a plea from Laura to take it all and end her life, Gabriel drank Laura dry, thus starting his transformation from man to powerful vampire, her powerful lineage allowing him to skip over the need for a weaker bat-like form altogether and retaining his human appearance, a form that only the strongest vampires retain. In fact, there are only 2 vampires that we know of that have skipped that phase, Gabriel and Alucard, who we'll get to next time. Gabriel, having fed fully on Laura, entered the Forgotten One's prison. Once inside, he shadowed the Forgotten One, only facing him once the Forgotten One poured most of his mystical might into the first seal as it was trying to break free. Gabriel found that without that power, the Forgotten One was vulnerable. He engaged, but the seal broke before Gabriel could defeat him. However, Gabriel saw that the power had a physical presence and moved slowly through the air when returning to the Forgotten One. Seeing this, Gabriel formulated a plan. After another fight, the final seal broke and the power began slowly flowing towards the nearly dead Forgotten One. Gabriel knew this was his last chance and jumped into the tendrils of power, intercepting them before they could reach the Forgotten One. After watching Gabriel absorb his power, the Forgotten One knew he was beaten. He begged for mercy, but Gabriel had none left to give. Gabriel slew the Forgotten One, exited the rift, destroyed his vampire killer, as it only reminded him of a life he no longer knew. He took on the mantle of ruler of the castle that had held the Bernhard family, had been the castle owned by Carmilla, the first vampire, and now was held by its final owner, Gabriel Belmont, now going by a new moniker, with a new purpose in unlife. Dracula, called Dragon. With this new life and new name, he had only one goal: destroy the Brotherhood of Light, whose founders had caused such pain when they ascended and whose elders had sent him to become this thing that could not die and thus never see his beloved Marie again. The Brotherhood obviously took the opportunity to become even more loved, stating that a terrible darkness in the form of Dracula was attacking all humanity. They gained followers and fought Dracula's armies, but never truly defeated him personally, never even came close. Until at last, the son of Gabriel Belmont, Trevor Belmont, who until he was sent to kill Dracula never knew who his father was and what he had done to Trevor's mother. But that is the beginning of another story, and it shall be told another time.
And that's the first half of the story of Gabriel Belmont of the Lords of Shadow series. We'll finish up the story next week. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like. And if you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like Mariana Ernest and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore or Let's Play, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like it, hit this subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, go to the link on the left.
And for a video chosen by the gods of YouTube from our channel, hit that link on top.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.